This is the review of the Yongnuo MC-36R wireless timer remote. This version is for the Canon upper tier series bodies, such as the 50D and higher bodies. Today we'll be testing with a 50D and a 1D Mark II. This is a timer remote that is also wireless. It's available off eBay for about $60 to $65 and ships from Hong Kong. Previously we unboxed the components, and we had the wireless transceiver that plugs into the camera and fits onto the hot shoe. It's actually a cold shoe, but it has a nice mount there, and takes a CR2 battery. It actually comes with one in it. In this case, it's a Yongnuo branded battery, but you can buy a replacement Duracell battery for about $5. As well as the timer remote itself. This remote is very similar to the Nikon remote. However, this has an interchangeable 2.5mm jack at the top, and this particular kit on eBay came with a connecting cord that plugs into the remote like that, so you can have a direct non-wireless connection if you so choose. So now the interesting thing, there's a couple things here that this is available in a couple different mounts. It's available in the 2.5mm headphone jack mount that like the Canon Digital Rebels use, or it's available in the 3-pin jack that is used by the cameras I'm going to demonstrate with today. This can be used in several different modes. Here on my 50D body, I'm going to demonstrate that first of all, on the back side of both devices, you'll notice there's a set of dip switches that need to be set. There's 32 different combinations that are possible. But they need to be set to the exact same frequency channel to ensure that they're compatible. So on the 50D body that I have here in front of me, I'm going to go ahead and place this into the hot shoe, and then the 3-pin jack goes into the side, into the shutter release port, and plugs in just like that. When I flip the camera on, all I have to do is flip on the autofocus. If I push the button on the receiver halfway down, it'll autofocus. If I push it all the way down, it'll fire the shutter, just like that. And so the wireless receiver also functions as a wired release, or it mounts into the hot shoe, or you could affix it to another object with the attached screw mount. For this point, we're just going to slide it right into the hot shoe. With the dip switches set the same, I can use the remote to be able to also trigger it wirelessly using the shutter release button here at the bottom. And again, half a press triggers a green light in the top, which is the focus. A full press activates a red light, which is the shutter release. Now this remote has several functions you can use. You can set it for delay, such as if you want a 1-minute delay while the photographer is racing to get into a group photo, or you could set a long exposure duration, such as if you put the camera into bulb mode and you want a 1-minute exposure or a 2-minute exposure to be activated wirelessly. There's also an interval timer. So if you want to do time-lapse photography, you can set the interval as well as the number of shots you want it to take in sequence doing the interval, and that goes from 1 to 400. Or you can set it for infinite, which will run until the memory card in the camera runs out. And there's also a musical note that indicates that you can turn off the internal beeping on the remote. One note on the remote is there's a lock on the side that'll lock the button so that when it's in wireless mode, it's not supposed to activate. But unfortunately, the lock mode does not seem to work very well. The set feature and everything is pretty intuitive with this D-pad. In this case, setting a long exposure. You got hours, minutes, and seconds. Right now for the interval, I've got it set for a 5-second interval. I'm going to drop that down 3 seconds, and I've got it set for infinity, or you can set to have an interval, or for a number of to be 2 pictures, 3, or back down to none. And that's will run till your card space runs out. Quickly set it to 5. Now I'm going to start this. The beeping you're hearing is the camera autofocus beep going off. And you'll notice in the sequence that it also sets the autofocus. So if you're doing time-lapse photography, or the like, you're going to want to put your lens in the manual focus so that it doesn't try to refocus as the picture or the setting changes, that you've got a consistent focus, unless you really want it to change. One example might be if you're doing the setting sun or a sunset, with the changing exposure, it may try to adjust the focus and ruin the picture. Now the other option you can do with this is you can also plug in the remote and use the attached cord. In this case here, I'm plugging it into my 1D Mark II, and it plugs right into the top like that. And so you can use the timer remote as a fixed remote. And again, the same thing works just like before. Now you'll notice with these set side by side, when the cord is plugged into the top of the remote, it does not activate the wireless function on the remote. So the camera with the wireless receiver is left idle. However, it seems completely plausible that if you had multiple of the receivers, you could trigger multiple cameras at the same time on the same wireless frequency. If that was a desire for simultaneous photography at a wedding or similar functions where you may want to trigger simultaneous exposures from multiple cameras. Or you could wire them together using 2.5mm headphone jack components available from a variety of electronic stores. Now, one other quirk that speaks to the build quality is that if I move the wireless receiver from my 50D to my 1D Mark II, the cord fits a lot more snug, and unfortunately it doesn't trigger. You'll notice on the front of the receiver the light does trigger green when I go halfway down, and when I should be releasing, it turns red, and it's met with no response. I'm not particularly sure why, if that's an issue with the cord or how deep the contacts are set, but that shows a perhaps inferior build quality. One nice thing though on the receiver, on the front you do have the confirmation with the light, and there is a small on-off switch to protect that small battery inside the receiver. However, the remote itself does not have an on-off switch, but does use AAA batteries, which are easily replaceable, or you can pop them out and store in your camera bag. The side of the remote, there is a lanyard holding. One example when you might want to use that is if you're doing time-lapse photography, and so you need the remote set to be able to trigger the actuations of the camera, and you have it plugged in via the cord, and you want to secure the remote so it's not going to dangle and fall off and risk damaging your whole setup. The remote itself feels very plasticky. It's got the appearance of a leather grip on the front, which is not. The other thing is the hold function here, which would be for like a bulb exposure to hold the shutter down open. Hasn't functioned consistently very well either with this. However, for the purpose that I bought it for, I wanted it to be able to use for time-lapse photography as well as to be able to have just a wireless release. It appears to be a wonderful product so far. Canon does not sell anything in this niche. From Canon, you either have to buy the timer remote or a separate wireless remote, but they don't offer an all-in-one solution as nice as this. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy this review. Check out my other videos on my channel, and have a great day.